Let's talk about the stages of grief. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote the book about death and dying. And of course, since then, many different psychologists have added different stages of grief, but I'm going to stick to the original five. Okay? Denial, anger, plea bargaining, depression, acceptance. Now, not necessarily in that order, okay, but denial, anger, plea bargaining, depression, acceptance. Like, and and grief shows up, and we go through stages of grief not just when we someone that we love passes away, but we go through grief when we are going through a breakup, when we get fired from a job, if we've had a health, diagnosis of some sort, any kind of loss, right? If we are even processing some childhood trauma, some abuse, that's we go through the stages of grief. It is very important to be aware of them, because when you are aware of them, then you know, oh, I'm in the anger stage right now, or I'm in the plea bargaining stage of life right now, of grief right now, right? And of course, usually if you're in the denial stage, you don't usually know because you're in denial, right? But then after the fact, you can be like, oh yeah, I was in denial. I wasn't even willing to see the situation for what it was. And while we're talking about grief, let's talk about how grief affects you, right? People think that, they are grieving, and then someone passes away, and then they're moving on, or they've had a breakup or something, and they feel like they should continue grieving the loss of the person or a situation or a relationship. So I want you to give yourself permission to grieve, because this is what happens. Either they don't stop grieving or they don't grieve at all, because tears are too painful for them. Because again, more than likely the message they received growing up was, don't cry. You're the strong one in your family. Crying is a weakness. Now that message, remember, that message from our elders was appropriate, because in their generation, that's all they knew. They didn't have the luxury of mental health awareness and therapy, and they didn't know any of this stuff, and they didn't understand childhood trauma. They didn't understand generational trauma. But now for us, that advice doesn't work. You know that song, Going on a Bear Hunt? I'm not afraid, right? How do you go when you come across something, you come across a river, you can't go around it, you can't go over it, you gotta swim across, you gotta go through. And that's how grief is. You've gotta go through the emotions. What does that mean? You sit with yourself and you allow yourself to feel shitty. You allow yourself to feel the pain. You allow yourself to feel the anger. You allow yourself to feel the frustration, the resentment. Because as you feel, you're releasing, and hopefully you're crying, or you're journaling, or you're hopefully spending time grounding, or you're, listening to music. You're filling your cup. Because once you release it, then that's done. You learn from it and you keep it going. But if you don't release it in the form of tears, or your, anger or emotions or whatever it is, if you don't process and feel your emotions, that will become disease in your body. You will get diagnosed with some kind of serious ailments, and then you got to deal with that. So, what do you want to do? Hospitals and doctor's visits and physical, aches and pains and loss of ability? Or do you just want to sit and feel these freaking emotions and get it out of your system and learn and heal? Because that's what we're here to do anyways. That's what this is all about. I hope that helps.